Hey everybody, and welcome to the second live of this month where we are looking at how to make habits stick. Apologies for the slight delay. Adele has got a lot of personal things going on right now, so she cannot step forward with today's live. So I've had to step in, and we were just recording the podcast beforehand, and we were in a really great discussion on procrastination, laziness, and if we're low on energy. So it was really great, and we just brought it to an end. And I'm just jumping into the live here. So I'm going to give you a heads up. I haven't planned anything for today's live. So we're going to have a good free flow discussion. I'm going to be bringing stuff off the top of my cuff in terms of how I've made habits stick in my experience and asking you some questions to get you thinking about how you can start to make your habits stick. So apologies for the slight delay. It's been a busy day, but we're here and we're here to give you some wisdom and to share you with some thoughts on habits and building up the conversation, following from the conversation we had last week on the importance of choosing our right habits. So I know a lot of you shared your habits, what you're trying to build, and the importance of your habits last week, which is fantastic. So feel free to share what you're trying to implement into your day-to-day basis, into your daily routines. Feel free to share with us here today, and we can start to look at how we can start to make those habits stick. So the first question I want to open up and just get everyone thinking about is, before we look at how we make habits stick, I want to ask the question, why do we give up on habits? What makes us give up on our habits? I'm just going to go to the comments box. Lots of stuff coming through. Apologies for the slight delay, but we are here. Thank you, Daniel, for keeping everyone warm. That's fantastic. Sorry about your tea, Shannon. But I hope you've got it nice and warm and you've got it next to you now for a good cup of tea and a conversation. Lots of stuff coming through. Fantastic. So we've got Vijaya tuned in. We've got Andini tuned in. Daniel tuned in. Shannon's here. Paula's here. It's wonderful to see you all. So before we look at how we can make our habits stick, how we can make our habits start to really implement them and make them part of our routine, our life, I want to ask, what is it that stops us? Why do we give up on habits? Daniel says because it's easier to let them slip. It's a good point. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit more? It's easier to let them slip. Paula Adams says, for what makes me give up is a lack of energy. And we just had a really good discussion on this in the podcast episode in terms of when we have that lack of energy and the difference between lack of energy, procrastination. So it'd be good to get your views on the podcast we just did as well, Paula. Shannon's mentioned procrastination. So this is nice. It's leading on from the conversation we just had. So Vijaya and Priya, if you're tuned in, feel free to share in some of your tips and some giveaways from our podcast episode. Andini says it's uncomfortable at first. New habits can be very uncomfortable at first. And we touched upon this last week when we looked at, we talked about Robin Sharma's 5 a.m. Club, which is another fantastic book to look at habits and how we can start to really own our morning. And he talks about how habits are, they're very difficult in the beginning, or uncomfortable in the beginning as well, difficult, uncomfortable. They're kind of messy and unsure in the middle, but then they become beautiful at the end. When we go through that train of habits, and I mentioned this last week in terms of Zen and the art of archery, we're essentially moving something from our conscious to our subconscious to the point where we can just do it naturally without that effort. But it can be such a journey. And for those of you who are taking the certification course, when we start to look at habits, we can use that model of the 4 stages of the psychological competence. And when we're looking at habits, we remember we're in that second stage, and we're looking at how we get to that second stage, to the third stage, and from the third stage to the fourth stage. So for anybody who hasn't heard of the 4 stages of psychological competence, what we're looking at here, it's the kind of cycle that all the 4 stages we go through whenever we want to implement a new habit, a new hobby or a new task or something we want to do on a day-to-day basis. So think about it as driving. So if you've driven before, then it's a good example to use. If you've never driven before, think about when you've learned to speak a new language, or whether you've learned to play a musical instrument or a sport. Think about the journey you go through when I mention this. So first of all, we start off in the box called the unconscious incompetence. So this is where we're unconscious of what it is we need in order to build that habit or to do that hobby. So when we're in box 1, we're at that stage. But we have a desire. This is where we want to learn how to drive, but we don't know everything that's involved in order to learn how to drive. So we've got that desire, but we're incompetent and we don't know what it is that we need. We then move into the second box, which is the conscious incompetence. And this is that moment when we get in that car and we sit in the car and we get, this is the feeling of overwhelm. It's like, wow, there's so much to this. I need to check my mirrors. I need to learn how to use the gear stick, the steering wheel. I need to learn how to do all these moves. We come into that conscious awareness of how incompetent we are. And sometimes when we move into that first box, into the second box, this is when we can tend to give up. This is that scary, uncomfortable stage where we've had that desire, but now we've become aware of everything we need in order to master that skill or that habit. And we can tend to give up because it's feelings of overwhelming. You remember that first time you sit in a car, it can be very scary, very overwhelming, and you didn't realize the extent that you need to go through in order to learn how to drive. What we're looking at today is when we've got to that point, let's say we get past the overwhelming, we don't give up. How do we then start to build that into a habit? How do we move into the third box? And the third box is when we become consciously competent about this area. This is where we learn how to drive. We can drive, but we've got to think about it. We've got to think about how we can drive, how we can get to this place. We're consciously looking at our mirrors. We're consciously changing gears. We're constantly thinking about it. Then we move to the fourth box, which is the box called unconsciously competent. And that's when we've mastered the skill. We can do it just without thinking about it. So here we're going to be sitting between boxes 2 and 3 and look at how we can make these habits stick. Some tips and tricks on ways in which we can start to move from that overwhelming, have to learn everything we need to do, into that second box of being able to implement that habit, into that messy stage, and then moving it into the fourth stage where it becomes beautiful. So that is came from Robin Sharma 5 a.m. Club, not the 4 stages of psychological competence. That's a psychological model that we talk about. It's slightly different, but that concept of a habit being kind of difficult or uncomfortable in the beginning, messy and unsure in the middle, but becoming beautiful at the end. You can see yourself go through that journey of the 4 stages of psychological competence as you go through that habit. So I'm just going to go back to the comments. So Vijaya says, it is easy to slip into comfort zone and giving into excuses for not working on your habit. Now, definitely it's easy. We seek security, stability. It's easy for us to go for that easy option. We always like to choose the easy option in life. Whether it's the easy option and the quickest option is what we want. And that can really hold us back. We're scared to take the harder option and the option that's going to take longer time. Daniel Hinmark says, for me, it takes more effort to try and build a new habit. It really does. It takes a lot of effort. So we're going to give you some tips on how we can start to break down that effort. How do we start to make the habit more simple for us? How do we start to make it more enjoyable? How do we make it easier? So we can really start to implement them into our day-to-day routines. Paul Owen says, would love to. I'm guessing that is to share your perspective. I'm looking forward to hearing your perspective on that podcast. It was a great podcast. So I just want to say thank you to Vijay and Priya for taking the time to record that. Some really good discussion. And Dean says, also the reasons behind that establishing new habits is not strong enough. So do we think desire plays a part in this? If we really want something, does it become easier? Is it that we don't desire it enough to put in that work and effort? How do we think desire comes into implementing new habits? Paul Adams says, I just did this in the coaching course. That's fantastic. Yeah, it's a great model. It's a really good model. And it's a good awareness tool to show us where we are on that journey of developing and building that new habit. Paula says, the more I read and listen, the better I wrap my head around it. Then that's when action happens for me. That's wonderful. You take that time to learn, to listen, to get that full understanding, because that can be a blocker for us too. If we don't fully understand the habit or fully understand what we have to do, sometimes we can give up. But when you take that time and that patience to really wrap your head around it, we can take that action. Shannon says, I think it depends on the habit too. Yeah, we're going to cover that today. It really does depend on the habit. Sometimes we can set ourselves too big a habits that we want to implement, and by breaking it down and making it more simple, we can really make a difference and install it. We might want to set ourselves a goal to go jogging for 60 minutes every day, which is really unrealistic if we haven't done any exercise or physical activity for a while. So how do we break that down to, starting off with 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and starting to build that up? So some of the tips that we'll share today. Vijaya says we are not getting instant gratification from the habit that is strong enough to keep us going. That is an important point to note, Vijaya. So many times we want that. We live in a society right now where we want everything now. We kind of lost that patience. We want everything instantly. We want that instant gratification with everything. You think of the way the world is right now. If you're in a country that that has Amazon, you can get next day delivery. Amazon even offers things in the same day now. We're constantly striving and using technology to get things quicker and simpler. And that can really block us with the things that really matter in life and the things that really take self-discipline, and it's going to bring us more benefit in the long run. So we definitely need that shift from instant gratification to being patient and having a real desire to what it is we want and making sure we stick to it. We all think if we go to the gym for a week, it's going to show up, we're going to have an amazing body. And if we're not seeing results, that's another thing that can really put us off. If we're not seeing results, we can tend to give up very easily as well. But if you think about it, and I think I've mentioned this somewhere recently, it might have been the last webinar when I talked about that, to check out the Simon Sinek interview with Tom Bilyeu, and he starts to talk about consistency and the importance of consistency. And he asks Tom Bilyeu, at what point, tell me the exact point in your life that you loved your wife, that you fell in love with your wife. And he starts to talk about how it's all a phase of consistency. And it's the same with going to the gym. You go to the gym, you work out, you're not going to see results, you're not going to see it shape, but then one day it's just going to happen. The results are just going to be there. And if we're not seeing results, that can stop us. That can make us give up quite easily too. Shannon says, sometimes I have to get sick of myself or situations to make a change. I can resonate with that, Shannon. Sometimes we need to have that, that it acts as a driver. It can really act as a driver, that motivation to just think, I'm fed up with this. This is, something needs to change. We need to sometimes I feel like we have to hit that rock bottom to really make that change. And I think this is something we'll talk about next week, or Adele and Daniel will talk about next week when we'll talk about breaking bad habits, because I think this is such an important point to note when breaking bad habits. We need to hit that rock bottom. We need to see something that's really affecting us in a negative way with that bad habit to force us to make that change, to start to implement new habits or break the bad habit that we have. Daniel says, I know it's not part of today, but I'm trying to break a habit, but can use the guidance to help me. Yeah, no, that's good. So one of the things, when we'll talk about this, Daniel, I'm sure you and Adele will talk about this next week, when you're looking at breaking a habit and using the guidance, but replacing the habit. How do you replace that bad habit with something else? That can be a really effective tool. So we're not going to go into detail on that, but that's something you can take in mind. Daniel, let me know if I can help. That's fantastic. We want it yesterday. Yeah, we do, Shannon. We want it yesterday. We're getting so impatient. It's starting to get unreal at the minute. This is why you think of, even in terms of relationships and, the lack of love, and the majority of single people in the world right now are shooting up. It's because people aren't willing to put that time, effort, and consistency with somebody in a relationship to really make it last and build something that's going to be long lasting. They want it now. And unfortunately, the internet really accelerates and kind of escalates that instant gratification. Shannon says, yesterday, between shoving and Tai Chi and yoga and meditation, and felt fantastic. So I need to ask myself why I haven't worked out yet today. And who's been there? I've been there, Shannon. When we get up and we have an amazing morning routine, and we've done that exercise, and we've done those habits, we feel fantastic. We really feel great on that day. What is it that stops us from doing it on day 2, day 3, day 4? Paul Adams says, I don't give myself enough credit to, and when I look back at all I've accomplished in the past 2 years, I have done way more than I think. Now, that's a good point to note as well, Paula. We really need to give ourselves credit for what we do achieve. It's celebrating those small wins. And it's another tip we're going to talk about today is, how do we reward ourselves for habits? We need to start to, because things take time, and, it's going to be, we talk about consistency and how you're not going to see results straight away. But you've got to be able to spot those small results. You've got to be able to spot those small wins. And when you do, reward yourself for that. But with that, so I'm going to talk about this now instead of waiting till later on. So one of the tips we have is to really reward yourself for your small wins. But when you come to the reward, try and be smart with your reward and what you give yourself. You know, if you're trying to lose weight, I see this a lot. You're trying to lose weight and you've worked so hard and you're getting wins in terms of losing weight or getting fit and healthy. Don't reward yourself with a big cake or something that's going to pile on the calories again, or something that's going to be counterintuitive to what it is you're trying to achieve. I mean, well, reward yourself with some form of food that isn't so high in the calories. But, you know, when you come to reward yourself, don't reward yourself with the reverse of what it is you're trying to achieve. You know, so for example, Daniel, if your bad habit is to give up smoking, and you've given up smoking for 2 weeks or a month, you haven't had a fag, like, don't reward yourself with having a fag. It's counterintuitive. You're going against it. So find and spot those small wins, those little mini results that you see, and reward yourself for it. Reward yourself with something that isn't going to be counterintuitive towards what it is you're trying to implement. And you can be smart with it. You can actually use the reward as more of an incentive to help you build on that habit. So, for example, if you're trying to get into running on a morning and you want to run 60 minutes every day, or you want 20 minutes, and we'll talk about that in a second. But, you know, and you've kept it and you've done it for a month, reward yourself with a new pair of running shoes. Reward yourself with a new running t-shirt. Reward yourself with something that's going to help you accelerate and really pick up on that habit that you're trying to install. You know, if you're trying to get a habit of reading every day and you've read every day for a month and you're almost finished a book, reward yourself with another new book. You know, link the reward to what it is you're trying to install and trying to implement, and that can really help. So tip one for today is reward ourselves for the small wins and the small progress that we're making towards our goals, so we can really, you know, keep our momentum, keep ourselves in that flow, and link that reward to something that's going to help accelerate or excel us in that habit. So I don't know if anybody's got any examples of how you can do that. So, for example, I used to do that. So when I was training for the Great North Run, and I want to build in that habit, you know, if I'd done it for a month, I'd reward myself with a new pair of running shoes, new pair of shorts, maybe. I even rewarded myself at one point when I got to 3 months. I kind of came up with a little chart of what I was going to reward myself with as I got into it. And even one of those things that you stick on your arm to keep your phone in so you can listen to it on the headphones. So yeah, just reward yourself with something that's going to help. Has anybody else got any examples? I did that with running. I'm trying to think what else I've done it with. I do it with when I was trying to implement reading as well. If I managed to finish a book in a month and implement that habit of reading, I'd buy myself a new book as a reward. But just think of things that you can do and the rewards that you can give that are linked to that habit. So Vijaya says, doesn't reward oneself also fall somewhere under instant gratification? Just a thought. So in a way it does. I see your point in terms of that instant gratification, but it depends, because if you create yourself a good reward system, and this is what I did when I was training for the Great North Run a couple of years ago, is I created a reward system that's going to be beneficial and help us accelerate. And it's just a way of, it's not getting instant gratification, it helps us keep motivated. You know, we need to remind ourselves, and, you know, we talked about the why a lot, of why it is we're doing it. And sometimes we need to just keep those rewards just to keep us getting something, so we're achieving something from what it is we're trying to achieve. I hope that makes sense, Vijaya, but I get your point. It can, you know, that reward is instant gratification, but it's not if you set yourself a deadline. So if you set to yourself, you know, if I do this for a month, if I run 30 minutes every day for a month, I'm going to reward myself with a pair of running shoes. I'm going to reward myself with a new water bottle, or, you know, I don't know, some songs. I don't know where you get your music from, the subscription of Spotify, whatever. If you link that reward to what it is you're trying to achieve, and you're setting yourself a reward system that is, if I achieve this level, this level, this level, you know, and it can really help, because if you set that, you know, and there's different views out there, and it depends on the habit, depends on you as a person, depends on your behavior, depends on the work ethic that you have. But the length of time it takes to install a habit can be from anything from 21 days to 60 days. And like I said, that depends on the habit, depends on you as a person. But if you can work out a reward system that after 21 days, I'm going to reward myself this, after 30 days, I'm going to reward myself this, 60 days, I'm going to reward myself that, and come up with a reward system. And that's not really linked to instant gratification, because you're forcing yourself to have to do it. And if you miss a day, you need to discipline yourself and say, I don't get a reward. I've started again. This is day one. Day one starts again because I've missed a day. So if you keep that going, it'll push you. When you get to 21 days, 30 days, and then eventually to 60 days, you should have implemented that habit to the point where it's easy for you to do. And it gets to the stage where it feels wrong if you don't do that habit. Let's see some of the comments coming through. Shannon says, I am best if I start my morning with activity. No, we are. I honestly believe if you do everything in the morning, and it can really help. And that's the kind of philosophy behind the 5 a.m. club, is if we own our morning, we really own our day. And we talked about this last time. Learning when you want to do the habits is really useful for when you align it with your energy. So Paula says, that's where I get lost, is linking to what will support the new habits. Maybe that's a conversation we can have. Think about, because we talked about last week, and this is going to be tip 2. So I'm going to share tip 2 is the fact of habit stacking. So how do you start to habit stack? So you find things that are linked to a habit. You want to build this habit. How does that habit then link to another habit? So for example, a morning routine is a way of habit stacking. So if you can get up and you can do a quick 10-minute jog, if you're up and running, that's going to lead you to doing 10 minutes meditation, which will then lead to you doing 10 minutes reading. And that you've stacked your habits. So you've given yourself a set amount of time and you've stacked your habits. So you're doing 3 good habits in a row to really kickstart your morning. But we can have a conversation, Paul, and look at how we can link things to support with your new habits. Let's say Soza's here. It's wonderful to see you here. Let's say thank you so much for being here. Don't worry about being late. I was late. I was super late because we were recording a podcast and it was supposed to be Adele today, but instead you've got me. So thank you for being here. That's the most important thing. Daniel says, what's helping me with my fitness and walking more is what we are donating every 26 miles to charity. And that is another good way of a reward system, Daniel, is not necessarily giving it to yourself, but also to a charity. And I've mentioned this before. So tip number 3, so we looked at habit stacking, reward system, but tip number 3 is also having something. You don't do this if this might work for you, it might not work for you, but having a deterrent, something that's going to deter you from doing that habit. So for example, telling yourself, if I fail to do this habit, if I miss this habit twice in 1 week, for example, I'm going to donate X amount of pounds to a Donald Trump fund, or something that you don't like or you dislike. You're going to donate that money and take and spend that money if you don't do this habit. So that's a way, and it depends on you and how you like to learn, how you like to push yourself, and where you get your motivation from. Some people like to get it from the thought of reward, and some people like to, the carrot and the stick. Some people like the carrot, some people like the stick. So if you like that stick, then set yourself that deterrent that at the end of the month, I will have to pay X amount of pounds for every day that I miss into, I don't know, something that you're against, something that you dislike, or give it to a person that you're not really connected with, someone that, I don't know, that just give it to them. And if you struggle, you really want to take your habits seriously, then give that money at the end of the month to a friend that you trust, or have it to someone to have ownership of that money, and they can give it you back for a reward, or they can not give you it back and spend it or wherever, because you failed to hit your habit. So it's good to use that if you've got a good accountability partner that you trust. So you can reward yourself and have a reward system, but I would advise to link the rewards to what it is you're trying to achieve. Habit stack. So a bit more about habit stacking is being able to have one habit that leads to another, that leads to another. So you start to stack them up, and then you just get into that flow and that momentum of having a series of great habits. And the third one is maybe look at a way to deter yourself to continue to do it. So if you fail to do it, if you don't like doing it, then you have to pay into something, or you get some kind of consequence for not completing that habit. Just go back to, let's say external reward are great, but also think about internal rewards. That's a good point, let's say. What do you mean by internal rewards? How can you reward yourself internally? It's a good question. Every 26 miles we donate to charity. That's fantastic. The Jai says, I get your point, but as long as we are progress, I think it's positive to reward yourself after accomplishments. The Jai says, yes, rewards that take you forward or keep your momentum that brings inefficiency is good. Yep. It does. This says bad habits are hard to break when you have engaged in such behavior for a long time, so it's important to start with small steps. It really is, let's say, and we're going to cover this next week. So Daniel and Adele are going to step live, and they're going to talk about how we can break our bad habits. It'll link on from this session, so there'll be stuff that's taken from this session and mentioned in next week's session, which is fantastic. So a bit of a recap, but the focus is going to be on how we break habits. Today, we're looking at how we can make them stick, and that's 1, through reward, 2, through habit stacking, starting to build habits, and 3 is maybe having a deterrent or some way of putting you off not achieving that goal. And Dini says, I bought a new hoodie from Coaching Minds as I did well with showing up and did live streams and studies. That's fantastic. And you'll link in your reward to what you're doing as well. So that's great. Thank you so much for buying one of our hoodies. I'm actually wearing one of our hoodies now, the one with the hummingbird on. But no, thank you. That's fantastic, Andini. Paula says, Paul, you just helped me link what I did with my boys with their rewards chart. I should make myself my own reward chart. That's fantastic. Go for it, Paula. And you don't have to do it, so you can set that and build that any way you want. It doesn't have to be every day, but let's say if I can do this 3 times in 1 week, I'm going to get this. And set your rewards, so don't leave it. I do this quite a lot. So I've talked about the law of a planner, law of attraction planner before previously. So I like to have a planner and I like to plan things, and in there I set what the reward's going to be. So if I get all these tasks done by the end of the week, so I have a reward chart for getting things done and making progress in my business rather than with my day-to-day habits. But you can build that, you can structure that any way you want. You can print it out, you can put it on your wall so you can see it daily. You can have it in your project planner, something that you go to every day, something that you see to remind you that you got to get this done today, and you've got to do this habit. And I mentioned last time, make them adaptable. Don't become attached to your habit. So as long as you're doing it at some point during the day, just having it in a place that you go to remind you, I need to do that today. I need to do that today. What time am I going to do this? So if you struggle to have a set time, make it flexible and adaptable. So no, that's a great point, Paula. It really is. Sean says, and then I get so much more of what I need to do when I get up and move first thing in the morning. We do. It really frees our day. And it also allows us to have a better rest on the evening. We can go into bed at a good time. We can start to feel relaxed because we've accomplished so much, and we get a better night's sleep because of the accomplishment that we've achieved. Dennis says, love that. I hate washing clothes. I could maybe have a deterrent when I don't complete the habit, then can be accountable that I have to do a load of washing. Yeah, you can do it like that. It doesn't have to be monetary. So you can have some kind of accountability partner that gives you some kind of punishment for not doing it. And again, you're linking it so you have to do a load of washing. So no, that's good. Alexis says, rewarding yourself internally is nurturing yourself and recognizing that you have strengths and are able to accomplish goals. So yeah, there's a way, it's more difficult to reward yourself internally. I understand what you're saying there, let's say, and it really depends on our self-talk and how positive we can talk to ourselves, how, and that takes a lot of inner work. It takes, we're talking about positive affirmations, we're talking about negative thoughts into positive thoughts. We're talking about giving people that perspective where they're seeing their progress, because we got to remember where we're at on our journey. And external rewards are so much easier to give, and that will help with the internal rewards. It's some of us might need to hit that habit and get into that flow and start to do those things to be able to nurture ourselves, to be able to recognize the strengths that we have. We need to start to implement those mini habits. You think about gratitude journaling, you think about doing daily positive affirmations, you think about meditation. They're all habits that we have to install in order to get to that point where we can recognize ourselves internally and give ourselves that reward and that self-talk. So I agree what you're saying. It's fantastic to be able to do that, but that's a journey in itself, and we have to go on a journey to get there. Shannon says, oh yes, shoving in the freezing cold helped me sleep well last night. I'm sure it did, and I'm sure that wasn't fun, Shannon. But well done on getting up and doing that. Great physical exercise, and it's glad you give you a good sleep as well. Shannon, I believe that thinking about how we will feel once we accomplish our tasks and make habits will help us by seeing the accomplishment with our visions. Now, 100%. Now, bringing in a bit of visualization is fantastic as well. Reminding ourselves on a daily basis why it is we're doing what it is we're doing. And I think visualization exercise is perfect for understanding what the habits we want. If we start to visualize what we want our life to look like and start to come up with a bit of action plan of what we need to do to get there, and then we keep that vision, we keep that focus, it's so much easier. It pulls, we talked about visions last month, just having that vision, whether it's a business vision, whether it's a personal vision, that vision acts as a magnet and it pulls us towards it and makes it a lot easier. So I'm going to go into tip 4 now, and it's not on visions, but you're leading me to it. So tip 4 is make our habits easy. How do we make our habits easy? So, for example, if you're looking to start running in the morning, make sure that you set your clothes out the night before. Have your trainers ready by your bed, by the door. Have your water bottle filled up with water. Make the habit easy for when you wake up. Have everything you need in place. Have it in a place that you're going to be able to access it. So, how do you make your habits easy is the next question, is tip 4. So, it's something you want to ask yourself. Whatever it is you're trying to talk about, is how do you make it easy? And on the reverse, and I'm sure Danny will go into this deep next week, if you're trying to break a habit, how do you make the habit hard? How do you make it difficult for you to do that habit? So we're looking at the level of easiness and strength. When we want to install a new habit, we need to make it as easy as possible and think about the ways in which we can make it easy. When we're trying to break a habit, we want to make it as hard as possible, and how we can really make it difficult for us to, for example, hiding. If you're trying to quit smoking, this is one of the bad habits that I have in my mind. I don't smoke myself, but how do you keep your fags away? How do you limit what you can spend on your cigarettes? How do you, make it so difficult for you to be able to grab a fag? But I'm sure we'll go into a lot more detail next week on that. So for now, on making the habit stick, how do you make that habit easy? Paula says, I think when you live with someone, it's important to communicate properly so they support your reward too. They matter in your success. They really do. And I think you're at a benefit if you live with someone to have that great accountability partner. It depends on the relationship with the person that you're living with. Some people might be in a flat share. Some people might be in an environment where people aren't supportive on what they want to do. But you are really, help each other, be each other's accountability partners. And that's tip 5 is accountability. Have an accountability partner for these habits. Someone checking in on a daily basis to make sure that you're performing well. If you're not, why? What's your blockers? We have our accountability group every Monday, and it's great to hear people's small wins. We've got a group. If we want to drop in a chat, we can drop in a chat and ask a question. Accountability group can really help. So tip number 5 is finding a way of accountability. It can be in forms of a tool, it can be in forms of a group, but as Paula mentioned, having that person to support you with your reward, to have that person to keep you motivated, keep you inspired, is fantastic too. So Paula, you and Frank can tell you what his aims are, what his habits he wants to build in. You can tell him yours, and you can have your own reward systems. You can work together and really help implement what they are. Vijay says, environment and the circle you are with also matters. It really does. You need to put yourself into an environment, surround yourself with positive people that want to see you exceed, that want to see you implement these habits, because these habits are going to become part of your reality, which is going to become part of your success and help you achieve what it is you want to achieve. But remember, don't forget last week's session. It's important to choose habits that are beneficial for you, that are really going to help give you that drive. Don't know anymore. Set reminders on my phone really helps. That's fantastic as well. Another great tip. So if you do have tips on how you've implemented habits, please share them today. So Daniel sets reminders on his phone, and you can do that on Facebook Messenger. It's really powerful. You don't have to set an alarm. You can set up an accountability group, and in that accountability group, even if it's just a partner, you can set certain reminders so you both get a notification that that's the time for them to implement that exercise, implement that meditation, whatever it is, the habit they're trying to install. It sets as a reminder for the day. And Daniel, I know you mentioned on one of our previous lives, you've got yourself a smartwatch to help as an accountability tool for your fitness, which is fantastic. Alexis says, yes, you want a positive tribe. You really do. You want people that are there, that are supporting you, encouraging you, really pushing you, but not forcing you. It needs to be all in your own time, at your own pace, but just giving you that gentle nudge, that gentle push, that check-in. Someone who can challenge you, but is not going to be so hard on you if you're not achieving what it is you're achieving. Vijay says, checking in at morning, noon, evening, and night with myself and where I am at with my daily habits helps. That's another fantastic tip, Vijaya. And one thing I'd recommend for everybody in terms of starting that, so Vijaya's, this links to habit stacking again, is, I would start with a habit of buying a planner. Just have a planner. Even if it's just a notebook or somewhere you can capture your plans, your habits, just getting it written down on what you want and being able to tick them off as you do it each day. That's the start of a good habit. So get in the habit of, it doesn't have to be an expensive planner. It can be just a notebook and you design the planner yourself. I've got a Canva template if you want. You've got the planner that you've got for, we send it out every month now for Coaching Minds. So you can print that off and use that as a planner. And we are going to give a habit tracker. So if you attend our workshop at the end of the month, again, it's completely free. We've got a workshop in 3 weeks time, Daniel, I believe. So on the 21st, on the 7th of March, we have a habits workshop. It's going to be a cafe workshop. We're going to get together, and in there, we're going to give everybody free habit trackers so you can download and keep track of your habits. But getting some kind of form where you're planning your habits is the first habit to install, is having something that you can tick as you go through, and then using the tip that Vijay has mentioned is to have that around you, whether it's a notepad or something, and you check your habits. You're checking your progress on a morning, noon, and evening to see that you're making an achievement. So accountability, a good accountability tool is a planner as well. So I'd recommend that before your first habit in terms of your habit stacking is get into the habit of having a planner and being able to check the habit of checking that plan. Because then that leads to, I check my planner, I haven't done my meditation today, I'm going to do it now because I've got the time. Or check my planner, another habit, I haven't done my run today, I need to find 20 minutes. Check my planner. So the habit of checking your planner is going to lead to you doing more good habits and can really start to stack those habits. Paula says, the accountability group helps me make my goals. Thank you, Vijaya, for making it simple for me. Yeah, Vijaya is great in that. You're all great. You're all fantastic in that accountability group. And I'm so privileged to be part of that and helping us stay motivated towards our goals. It's fantastic. And it says that smartwatch notifies me and tells me what I need to do next to keep up with my fitness. It also rewards me with badges. It also has one-off badges that you can only get by doing it within a day. And that's fantastic. That reward system of badges and achieving things. We live in a world of gamification, and effectively what we're doing when we're setting our reward system is creating a game for ourselves in terms of where we get the reward for achieving certain things. And it's great that that's built into your smartwatch, Daniel. That's fantastic. The other thing is, if you like things electronically and you don't need to print anything off, or you don't want to print anything off, there's lots of I'm just spotting for mine. So I've got one called Habits. There's lots of apps that you can download, and they're free as well. So just go on Android or Apple Store. But the one I've got is called Habits, and you can literally build in your whole habits. You can set that through, and I believe you can actually. So I was just exploring with this. I don't use it. I like to use my planner, but I think you can set like alarms and notifications on the app to remind you to do it on a day-to-day basis. I think they send you, you can set a reminder for the date and time, which is fantastic. You can set the color, so you can color code the habits, but it's just called Habits. It's free. You can download it. So if you like to keep everything on your phone, you like to be a bit of a tech savvy and do everything on there, you can use that. That's another good tip. So get yourself a habit tracker. So that was tip 5, is how you make your habit easy. Think about how you make it simple. Vijaya, squeeze in time every day, small pockets like 15 minutes at regular intervals. That's really smart as well. That's a really good tip. Shannon says, that's one of my goals when I'm able. I want a smartwatch. So then how do you build that into your reward system, Shannon? How do you build that into, so you're working towards what it is you're trying to achieve in terms of your habits? How do you make that day 60, day 90? And then when you get there, you can buy yourself that to help you take you to that next level in terms of your habits. Paul says, so this past week I started something new. Instead of relying on someone to tell me how to do something, I just Googled it myself and made it happen. That's amazing, Paula. That's fantastic. Paula says that because I rely on everyone to do it for me. No, that's amazing. And, we can be going back, if we feel a bit uncomfortable, if we feel, a bit of fear towards our habits and what we're doing, it can really deter us and kind of make us rely on other people. If we've got other people around us that can do it for us, it's the easy option again. And, I've been there at work, if you in a work environment, it happens, if you know somebody that knows the answer, you always go to them for that answer because they've got it, rather than taking that time to find it out for yourself. And then that becomes a habit that you always go to that go-to person. But then you find out that that person leaves the business. So I'm just doing it from my own personal experience here, and you haven't got that person to go to. So you have to find out that information for yourself. And it's quite frequent with we have it's kind of with the technical stuff. Technical stuff can be scary at times, and learn new things, new systems, and we tend to back off away from what it is that we fear a little bit. But Daniel says another thing I found the other day is a game on my phone where there are zombies you have to outrun that show up on GPS, making the habit fun. Sounds like a good way for me. So is that kind of like an outdoors thing, Daniel? You're not just sitting there playing with zombies. It's like it reminds me a bit like, and I think that we're going to see more of these, and these are good ways to keep people motivated. So one of the things that got a lot of people fit in the UK a couple of years ago was Pokemon Go. That got people out and about. You were playing a bit of a game, but you didn't realize you were getting out in nature. You're walking. That was so great for people. And this has gone on to the next tip. Tip 6 is, how do you make your habit enjoyable? If you enjoy doing the habit, you're going to do it more. It doesn't necessarily have to come from the reward that you get or the reward that you're giving yourself, the reward system, but how do you make it enjoyable? So, for example, if you don't like running, how do you make sure that, one of the things I used to do, so I don't run much since I've been to Colombia. There's not much running distance. But when I was back in England, I was going out for jogs. I would limit the certain type of music that I liked to the only time that I could. So I discipline myself. The only time I can listen to this album is when I'm on a jog, or the only time I can listen to this podcast is when I'm on a jog. So how do you start to make your habit enjoyable and link the things that you like doing with a habit you're trying to install, so it makes it a great experience? So I had a conversation with a guy a couple of months ago, it was probably over a year ago now, and we're talking about this. We're talking about, personal development is great, learning is fantastic, but the hardest thing about growth is implementing habits and installing everything we're learning into our day-to-day lives. And we're talking about habits, and what he did, I thought was a great idea, is he used to love the series Suits on Netflix. So what he used to do is he would only allow himself to watch an episode of Suits when he was jogging on his treadmill. So he used to jog and watch an episode of Suits. So it's not rewarding yourself afterwards. It's doing something you enjoy with something you don't enjoy. So he never used to enjoy jogging on his treadmill. So he installed a small TV into his workout area. And he used to only watch Suits when he was jogging on his treadmill. So you kind of make your habit more enjoyable. How do you make your habit more enjoyable? So think about your habit and how can I make it exciting? How can I spice up my habit? And then also have that discipline to allow yourself to only do that thing you enjoy doing at the same time you're doing that habit. Shannon says, day 60 sounds just about right, so I'll stick to my positive habits and set that reward. Whatever day you want to set yourself, Shannon, but it does work. It really does help, and it keeps you motivated because, if you want that watch as well, it'll really help you gun. Paula says, technology is a chat for me, but I needed to step up and do my part. And it's fantastic that you did that, Paula. It's absolutely amazing. I hope you're going to give yourself a tick on your reward system when you get it up and running. Shannon, I've learned to really try before asking for help, which can be seen as not good, but for me, it's a great to try. I love being a woman, but I am definitely a tomboy. And that's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. And the point is, I think you make a really good point there, is we really need to learn to try first. It goes a long way. And it really, when we do try for ourselves, it really helps the other person help us too. It's a mindset shift we need to get into. I used to, so speaking from personal experience, is I built up a huge relationship with someone in our company that people never used to get along with, but the way in which he liked to help people, so he was in our legal department, and with my background, it was easier for me to do so, but he would never really engage with people, or he'd give short answers to other people if no one had done their homework or tried at least before coming to him. They were just, it goes back to that philosophy of if you give a person a fish, you feed them for a day. If you give a person a fishing rod, you feed them for life. And people used to keep coming to him for fish and not try to build their own fishing rod. So when you start to really do a bit of homework, do a bit of trying yourself, and you come to that person with, I've tried this, but this isn't working. I've tried that, that doesn't work. And that makes it easier for them to be able to help you. And it also allows them to show you where you've gone wrong or what you're missing in terms of learning for the future. So just by doing that yourself, by doing research, saying, look, so I've tried, I've looked at this and this doesn't seem to be working, and I've tried this method, what would you recommend? And then that way you get a more constructive conversation than if you just go, can you do this for me because I haven't a clue. It can build a really constructive conversation. It can help you learn more, and it can help that other person learn more. And Daniel, I know you're tuned in. Priya, I haven't seen you tuned in, but I know I'm like that when you guys come to me and I'll ask you questions to go away and think about it a little bit more. And that's not because I can't be bothered to help you, but I want you to learn and grow and kind of find things out for yourself, because that's the way in which we really learn and really take off. So Shannon says, I don't like running, so it would be silly for me to even think about it as a habit. That's fantastic. It is so much better to start with something that you love and start with small steps and grow each day passes. No, it's fantastic. And that was the importance of last week, was making sure you pick a habit that is linked to you and you're doing it for a certain reason. So, you mentioned earlier on your Tai Chi and yoga. If you're really enjoying that and you're loving that, make that a habit, and it'll be easy for you to do that. I hate running. I don't like running, but the only reason I had to build it in as a habit is because I signed up for the Great North Run, which is a half marathon in the UK, and I had to get into that fitness. But I realized after the half marathon that running was, well, I realized it wasn't for me, but I wasn't going to give up. But after that, I told myself I'm not going to have running as a habit. It's not for me. I don't enjoy it. I get a little bit bored. So Daniel says, an outdoor thing where you outrun zombies in the real world outdoors, but they show up on GPS so you know where they are. That's absolutely fantastic. Do you kind of get like, is it a lot audio? So do you get like, can you hear them coming up behind you and all that sort of stuff, rather than having to look at your phone? But no, it sounds like a good way to get fit. And whoever invented that app has been very, very, very clever, very smart. I like that. Vijaya says, listen to musical podcasts while walking, so tag it with something you like. Yes, it is a great tip. Thanks, Paul. Thanks for that. No, it is. It really works. And you kind of, because it's it plays a psychological game on your mind. So if you're trying to implement walks every day and there's something you really love and you tie the two together, you're incentivized to go there because you can't listen. If you've disciplined yourself enough, you can't listen to that podcast or listen to that music or whatever unless you're doing that activity. If you can discipline yourself to that point, it pushes you, gives you that motivation to want to do it. Shows that self-exploration will tell us habits that are in our control, and choice will help us create the habits that are right for us. Definitely, it really will. Shannon says, something I have found very handy if I don't know how to do something is to try to YouTube too. Yeah, YouTube is a great way to start. We live in a world now where you've got access to everything on your fingertips. You can get an answer through Google. You can get you can learn through YouTube videos, and it's fantastic. And we live in a world where I think a lot of people are being generous and they're sharing their tips and their advice and how to do things. And I really love that about the world today. You can go on YouTube for free. You can go on certain websites for courses, and people are helping you to build in a new habit or find out how to do something. It's really, really helpful. Daniel Hinwatch says, it helps me to try first and then find out where I've gone wrong. And it's like a light bulb moment. And when I don't have to keep coming back asking for the same thing, it does. It really helps. Dennis says, I haven't tried the app yet. It's on my list to try tomorrow. Fantastic. Let us know how many zombies you get eaten by, or what do you escape. There's different levels. I'd love to hear more about this app. It sounds really fun, actually. Sounds good. Google leads to YouTube, and YouTube leads me to action. That's absolutely fantastic. Okay, so I think I've got to tip 6. Tip 7, one thing I wanted to open up in the beginning, but we got out, is make your habits small. So Daniel's saying, sorry, I love to Google if I don't know how to do. It's fantastic. Vijay says, keep it next to yourself. If you're drinking water, keep a bottle filled next to you. Make it very easy for yourself to get into that habit. Yes, that's fantastic. Keep everything near you. Make it easily reachable. And yeah, no, it's fantastic. So all these ways are ways in which you can help make your habit easy. So make your habit easy, make it enjoyable. And tip 7 is make your habit small. So don't be over realistic. So we mentioned this briefly at the beginning. How do you start to break it down? And really, like, instead of going for 60 minutes jog or 30 minutes jog, just start with 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is you're building in, 15 minutes, and build your way up. Because what you find is psychologically, when you tell yourself, I'm going to do a 5 minute run every day, because you're in the zone, all you need is that little momentum to get out of it. And when you're running and you're doing 5 minutes, you'll think, I'm here now. I might as well do another 5 minutes. I'm going to push myself to do 15 more minutes. You can push yourself to do a lot more. So by just having that small set goal, we're defeating ourselves psychologically. We're winning ourselves over in our mindset by just saying 5 minutes every day. And we know this is where the point where you've got to not let your awareness get ahead of you, because we know we're going to do more. So you need to make sure that you're sticking to 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes. And if you do more, that's fantastic. You can achieve more. But when you're in that zone, it's so much easier to do longer than to tell yourself. You think if you want to get out of bed and do 60 minutes, the thought in your mind that I have to do a 60 minutes jog it's horrendous. But if you just telling yourself, I've got 5 minutes, just go to get out and do a 5 minute jog, that's nothing. 5 minutes is fine, or walk. Then when you're out there and you're jogging, you'll enjoy it, or you'll feel it, and you'll say, well, I'm out here now. I might as well do another 5 minutes, or another 5 minutes, or another 5 minutes until you're ready to stop. So don't put that psychological block of a time frame, of a too high time frame. Just keep it small. And I'd advise you to remove the time frame altogether. One thing worked for me is I'm going to go for a jog and see how far I can go today, see how much I'm feeling it. I'm going to meditate, maybe a couple of minutes. Let's just see how long I'm going to meditate for. But just the fact of doing it, and remember we mentioned this last week, is our biggest progress comes from what we choose to do right now. Our biggest results come from what we choose to do right now. One, because all we have is the present moment, and two, because we're exercising our choice and we're putting the effort. All we can do is put the effort in now. You know, if we get into the questions of procrastination, if we say we're going to do it later, we're looking to procrastination, and we're not eventually, we're putting things off, we're deterring it. So our biggest results come from what we choose to do right now. So tip 7 was, keep it small. Keep your habits small to start off with, and then slowly build it. Small progress every day. We talked about Atomic Habits by James Clear last week, and he mentions in there, just look to make 1% increase every day on your habits. And over a period of time, that 1% is going to shoot up. It's going to be that 1% leads to that consistency, that constant growth. Instead of trying something and then failing for a few days and trying it again at a lot higher level and then failing for a few days, and we're just going to constantly do this with our habits. What he says is start small and just gradually build that consistency. And that's when we're going to start to implement and install something that's going to be really powerful, and it's going to move from that stage 3 of the psychological, what's stage 3? Work through it, that conscious competence, and it's going to move us into that stage 4 of unconscious competence. So that small improvements every day is what's going to give us the long-lasting results. Dennis says, I went for a walk in the snow the other day and was enjoying the nature. I missed turning I needed. Ended up walking an extra hour to get back. I'm hoping that's a good thing. And, it's going to be really great for your fitness and for your 26-mile goal as well. So, no, I'm really glad you did that, Danielle. It's fantastic. Sharon says, it's amazing what even 10 minutes of fun moves or dancing does me so much good as I accomplish other tasks. It's really good, and I can really resonate. So I've done a little bit of Tai Chi, not in detail. I like Qigong. They're quite similar but different. So I understand, that movement, and that creating that energy flow, getting rid of energy blocks, and just loosening ourselves and really grounding ourselves for the day can be really powerful. Daniel says, also what helps me is that I can't come back the same route I walked, so I have to make a complete circle to stop me wanting to turn back when I feel the burn. And that's fantastic. So you're making it, you're extending, you're pushing your boundaries, which is fantastic. It really is. Okay, and then finally, tip 8. So I've not done much prep for today. These are just coming off my own experiences in terms of my habit. But I would say tip 8 is to learn to be patient. Just be patient, put in that small progress each day. Understand that real results, real success takes time. So be patient and also be kind to yourself. You need to find that balance between self-discipline and being too hard on yourself. And it's, the in between is that, that kind self-talk. And really, it really helps to find that balance, because we need that discipline to say, look, you need to get off your arse, you need to do this, blah, blah. But we also need to not be too hard on ourselves and understand how we work and not push ourselves too hard that it's going to cause us a detriment in the long run. So trying to find that balance between self-discipline and that powerful self-talk and being too hard on ourselves and trying to push and force ourselves too much. So any questions from anything we covered today? So there's 8 tips there. I'll type something up so people can capture them. I'll just do a quick post with them in a line, and I'll maybe do an image to go with it on those 8 tips. And any questions, you can just drop them in the comments box below. But really think, so the first session was all about how you can think about the importance of your habits and choosing the right habits for you, and some tips on how to do that. Today is how we start to make them stick, by making them easier, making them more simple, making them more enjoyable, starting to build in habit stacking, starting to get accountability tools, how to really start to build that structure to really help them stick with us. Rewards, deterrence, that reward system. The reward system it was been one of the most powerful things for me. So I definitely recommend getting a reward system, and I would definitely recommend getting a planner or a notebook or somewhere where you track your habits, or an app on your phone, just somewhere where you can start to track your habits. And that habit of tracking your habits is beginning to you becoming very successful in implementing your habits. So I just want to say thank you all for your sharing your habits, sharing your wisdom, your tips, how you manage and install habits, your energy today, and just for all the love that's flown between you. I've seen some really good conversations between everyone who's tuned in. It's been amazing to see you all here. And I'll send lots of love to Adele on behalf of everybody. She's been a great miss today, and I hope she comes back soon. And so if not, you'll have me and Daniel next week, but hopefully Adele's back, and she can give you her tips and wisdom and cover anything that I've missed off. So sending you all lots of love, and have an amazing week ahead, and I'll speak to you when I speak to you. Bye.